Hello.
Yes, it has started recording.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm Hasrat Arjamand. I represent the Grassroots Institute. And if you read about me more, you can see this link, which is given here on this screen. So this is our website, grassrootsinstitute.net. And you will find my link. Okay. So this institute, let me introduce about it briefly. There are several activities we have been doing for a long time. So we have four different websites. I will explain one by one now. The prime activity which we have is our global trainings and capacity building. So we have already conducted very successful program last to last year, that was on mountain ecosystems and resource management. And this same program will happen this year too, in September 2013 in Bosnia. And you can see the web link on the top of it. So if you are interested to know about this program, you can go and then see it. Similarly, we have just now, we have launched another program, very interesting program. That's the Natural Resource Law and Governance. This will happen in Italy in the next year. So these two are our major global training programs. So the another very interesting activity we have been doing is the global lectures, local impacts. So last year we have had about 29 lectures given, delivered by renowned experts, renowned professors from different parts of the world, and in which many of you might have already taken part. And these are very interesting lectures. They are already available in video. All our lectures are recorded in video and they are there for your benefits. So you can see this web link and then can browse it. So you can find a link, completed lectures, and go into it. The third program which we are operating is the same program under which we are having this seminar today. This is the Global Leadership Program. And the website link is also written here, GLP/GLP. So you can go into it and can find details of all the fellows we have been associated with this time. And they all will be presenting in this seminar also. And Professor Hans Peter, who will be the next speaker, is the chair of the steering committee. So this is available there and you can see it. Another important activity which we have been doing is the research come action. We call it action research. So we have Rangeland Initiative. We are doing some activities under this. So our thrust is on the policy and legal issues uh, in the rangeland issues and pastoralism. This is under development, like we are trying to evolve some educational diploma and certificate programs. So in the couple of years, we'll be able to do it and launch it properly. So the website is already this, grassrootsinstitute.ca. Uh, Successfully running another program, another activity is the publishing of the few scientific journals. So we are already for several years have been doing this. Our natural resources journal is very well established, followed by the environmental law and policy. So recently we have just now going to publish the pasture and pastoralism, the new journal. So this is about the journal. The last thing is the networking. We are trying to develop this network, but this is just in the initial phase. So we have no funding for evolving this, but we have a greater vision. So we will do it in the future. So this was the short introduction of this institute's activities. If you want to know more about the activities, we have the 4 websites as written here on this slide, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and if you enter in any website, you will find on the bottom these 10 different boxes. And if you click any box, so you will lead to the the right. So I just stop this, and Clara, can you help me stopping the sharing of the screen? Okay, thank you. So this program, today's seminar will be inaugurated by a very renowned Professor Hans Peter. He is with us. He is the Professor Emeritus of Hydrology, Hydraulics and Water Management at the Institute of Hydrology and Water Management, which is located at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna. So his main interests of, his main fields are the water resources systems and risk analysis, impact of climate change on water resources, conflict analysis, and so on. So he is also working on the GIS and its applications in the water resources management. Professor Hans Peter has received dozens of prestigious awards, including recently received the Golden Needle of the Austrian Association of Water and Waste Management. He is actually the lifetime achiever of high value successes. Professor Hans Peter is also the member of he is actually very actively involved with us, and he is supporting us as the member of International Advisory Council. He is also sitting as the advisory board member of the one of the journals, Natural Resources. And importantly, as I said earlier, he is the chair of the steering committee of the Global Leadership Program, under which we are doing this seminar today. Other than that, he is the member of large number of societies, associations, expert forums, global groups. So he's vibrantly active. I met him first time in 2013 in Russia. We were together, and since then we have very good association, and he's helping beyond any boundary, beyond any limitation. So he's very actively participating, other than that, in various works pertaining to mountain hydrology and river basin management. He used to be a lecturer. He's lecturing in our all different programs, including the global lectures and the mountain ecosystems. So last but not least, he has written numerous books published by the renowned publishers. And today I was just looking at that he has organized many conferences, successful programs during his lifetime in the academics. So thank you, sir, to be with us and greeting all of us on this August day. And I just hand over to you to inaugurate this program and give your opening remarks. Thank you, sir. Professor Hans Peter.
Thank you very much, Hazrat, especially for your very, very polite and kind words. So, distinguished audience and dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure for me to contribute to this grassroots global leadership program. And today, as you know, we address resource conservation and management in mountain ecosystems. And we also, all of us, are quite aware that the mountain regions, wherever they are located, are highly exposed to climate change issues, as well as to various human pressures originating from growing population, associated with that, changes in the land use pattern, like intensified forestry, infrastructural development. Again, it's depending on the region, but everywhere we observe hydropower development, either for storage and for run-of river systems. We face pressure from tourism, and there are several other impacts endangering the sensitive mountain ecosystem. So therefore, I think that this webinar is quite well designed by Hazrat and others to address these points. As you know, the structure of today's that we have first a keynote, and then we have inputs from our GLP partners. I'm very honored to introduce to you Professor Schmidt-Vogt, who is delivering the keynote talk. Many of you, I'm sure, you met him personally. So he is professor at the Faculty of Environment and Natural Resources at University Freiburg in southwestern Germany. I had the pleasure to visit several times this renowned university. And he was also acting as a director at the Mountain Societies Research Institute in Kyrgyzstan, University of Central Asia. He was also director of the Center for Mountain Ecosystem Studies and Mountain Future Studies at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, besides many, many other very relevant activities. So if I would briefly summarize his very broad scope of research, I would say typical topics in his work are found in multifunctional landscapes, integrated land use systems and management, land use changes and livelihoods in mountain environments. So he has a long and rich international experience in both teaching and research, especially in mountain areas, with the emphasis on the Himalayas, the mountains in Southeast Asia and Central Asia. So the title of his today's presentation is Conserving and Managing Mountain Ecosystems, Lessons in Change and Complexity from the Forests of the Nepali Himalayas. So it's a great pleasure for me to invite now Professor Schmidt-Vogt to deliver his keynote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nachtnebel, for this very kind and detailed introduction to myself and also to the topic that I'm going to talk about. So I asked Clara to navigate the presentation. So at the moment, I cannot see anything on my screen.
Yeah, Clara, please do.
Let me
share the screen. Yeah.
one second.
Okay, can I intervene for a minute, please? Yes. Sorry. Okay, okay, Professor, if your slide starts, so you please go ahead. Yes. Otherwise, I take this 1 minute.
Can you see the slides?
Okay, please resolve this. In the meantime, I like to add something more about Professor Dishis. He actually, he was also the distinguished adjunct professor and associate professor at the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand.
Yes, yes.
Sorry. Yeah, so other than that, he was senior lecturer with the South Asia Institute of Heidelberg University in Germany. So from where actually he has done his doctoral degree and postdoctorate. So I think if I'm not wrong, he has over 35 years of the research experience in the mountain areas of Asia, especially in the Himalayas and mountainous mainland Southeast Asia, and also in Central Asia. So his research areas have already been told by Professor Hans Peter. So apart from various the member of the numerous reputed associations worldwide, he is also the active member of Canadian Mountain Network, which is operational from Alberta University. I was looking at his Google profile, Google Scholar profile, where his high index is 28 and I-10 index is 49. It may be more, I don't know. But we can imagine that how reputed and how high scoring scholar he is. So thank you so much for giving this 1 minute. So Clara, is this matter resolved? Okay, so Professor, please.
Okay, thank you very much for even adding on so much to my profile and raising the stakes for my lecture. Well, since it's a keynote lecture, I felt, and since Dr. Hazrat has pointed and Professor Nachtnebel have pointed out, actually also the length of my engagement as a researcher with mountains, especially in Asia, I would like to say something about really the main lessons that I've learned during sort of the relatively long time that I've been working in this region. And the lesson is that conditions, circumstances change amazingly, and that these changes are underlying by a great complexity of factors which act upon them. And I would like to illustrate sort of or present these learning lessons from the region where my learning curve has been the longest, and that is the Nepal Himalaya. 40 years ago, I was in the midst of my field research on forest degradation and deforestation in the Nepal Himalayas. And in about 2 weeks' time, I will be going back to Nepal to start research on another aspect of forests in the Nepal Himalayas. So it's a long learning curve, so to say, right? But I would like to start out before zooming in on the Himalayas with some general remarks. So Clara, if I can have the next slide. Yeah, that is just a truism. Mountains are not islands, but I felt it's necessary to mention that because mountains are often sort of lumped together with islands, especially in the climate change debate. But I think there is a major difference, and the main difference is that the influence of mountains and of mountain ecosystems reaches far beyond the perimeter of the actual mountain complexes. And that relates to hydrology. Rivers originating in mountains flow through vast expanses of lowlands and into the oceans. So, and transport the influence of the mountains into these reaches. And the same applies to climate. Climate is, of course, acts upon mountains, but is also modified by mountains. And these modifications reach far beyond mountain complexes. And in reverse, mountains and mountain ecosystems are increasingly subject to influences, external influences, which also increasingly originate far away from mountain complexes. While in the past, we were kind of used to describe mountains as isolated regions or peripheral regions, this is definitely no longer true. Influences act upon mountains. Professor Nachtnebel has already mentioned the influence of climate change. I focus more on other influences, such as the influence of markets, which influence land use. And I mention here labor markets, because these play a role in what I'm going to say about the Himalayas, but also international policies, such as conservation or climate change related policies. And last but not least, also conflicts, as we are seeing right now. Next, please. So to sum it up, just really very basically, in the age of globalization, mountain complexes and mountain ecosystems are increasingly subject to the dynamics and complexities of global change. And this I would like to exemplify on the case of the forests in the Himalayas, on which I've been working, as I mentioned already, since more than 40 years. So the next one, please, Clara. That map is just showing you the Himalayan range and the forest types that we can find there. The only thing that I would want to say about this slide is that there is enormous diversity of forest types, which reflects also the geographical and climatic diversity of the Himalayas. So we can see here forests that are ranging from tropical to subtropical, temperate, and subalpine. These forests play an important role for people living in the mountains, but also for people living beyond these mountains. Next one, please. And the Himalayas as a whole, as mentioned before in relation to other mountain complexes, have an influence that reaches far beyond their perimeter. They shape the climate, hydrology, vegetation, and socio-economic organization of regions within and well beyond their geographical range. And in this, forests play a crucial role. And I've just listed, not comprehensively, but just selectively, some of the important influences of forest ecosystems, which are regulating water flow and soil formation. In the context of the Nepal Himalayas, the role of forests at mitigating soil erosion has always been a large topic. Then they are providing timber and non-timber forest products. And again, a specific service that these forests provide is to provide nutrients for mountain agroecosystems. I'll explain that in more detail later on. They also provide habitat for wildlife and livestock in rangeland systems, which are very important in the Himalayas. And I know that Dr. Hazrat is quite strongly focusing on these systems. And then they're also serving as objects in spaces for religious veneration, for instance, as sacred forests for Hinduism, for Buddhism, or other religions that we can find in this area. And finally, they are serving as objects and spaces for recreation and tourism. So they are important in many ways, but, and that will be really the subject of my talk, they are subject to changes in forest cover and in forest quality within a very complex network of actors and drivers. And this next one, please, has been the topic of a paper that I published about 2 years ago with colleagues from the National University of Singapore. Mechanisms, drivers and mechanisms of forest change in the Himalayas. The graph here that shows these sort of the interaction of these drivers and mechanisms is just pointed here to, basically to confuse you. There's no way I could unravel this graph now, but it's just going to show what we've done here is you see at the bottom, green forest cover and sort of light bluish forest quality. These were the parameters we were looking at. And we were looking at the influences on forest cover and forest quality and the various interactions. Now, it's just to show you that we came up with an immensely complex network of factors which are acting upon these aspects of forests. And another, for me at least, really unexpected outcome of this research was that we found that forests are actually expanding in the Himalayas. And that was for me really an eye-opener, because 40 years ago, I had gone to Nepal under sort of when the deforestation of the Nepal Himalaya was sort of one of the biggest environmental topics of the time. That was the 1970s and the 1980s. But this apparently has changed. Next one, please. And on the next slide, I show you amazing comparison of maps that NASA has very recently published on the website, and this shows forest cover change in Nepal from 1992 to 2016. And when you look at the 1992 map, now you see dark green, of course, means dense forest cover, and light green, less forest cover. Then you can see that sort of the upper elevation forests in the north, they are still quite dense, and also the forests at lower elevation in the south and towards the Gangetic lowlands are still quite okay. But in between, and that is what is called the mid-hills of Nepal, the elevations between about 1,000 meters and maybe 2,500 meters are quite light. That means there's not that much forest there. And when we now move to 2016, we can see that this area has filled in quite significantly. And I was very happy, next slide please, that in the same publication, NASA has actually shown my study area, Sindhu Palchak district, where I did research on deforestation, and my focus was on sort of deforestation and forest degradation of high altitude forests above 3,000 meters. And again, in 1992, we can see that sort of the upper elevations, they are still quite well forested. And that's also what I found when I was there. Whereas the lower elevations, they're almost blank. And I'll show you a photograph to illustrate this case. And if we move to 2016, again, we see now these lower elevations have filled in with green color. So that there's an amazing and rapid process of forest regeneration and forest expansion happening in the Nepal Himalayas. That is rather fascinating. So next one, please, Clara. And here I would just go back again to the time when I did my research in the Nepal Himalayas. And I can say like young people today, they are very much motivated by the climate change debate. And a lot of my students are asking me to do their thesis research on climate change related issues. At the time when I was young and was looking for a topic for my doctoral thesis, the degradation, the deforestation of the Himalayas was a regional but a highly publicized topic. So it was clear for me that I really wanted to do research in that area. At that time, the debate was ruled by a prevailing theory, which was called the theory of Himalayan environmental degradation, which was very much based on a paper by Ekholm that was published in Science. And just briefly, sort of the line of arguments says that modernization has led to population growth. In Nepal, that was a recent phenomenon because Nepal was a closed country until the 1950s. It opened up after the 1950s and received a lot of development aid, especially also improvements in the medical sector, which then led to population growth. And the theory said that population growth leads to more demand of stable crops and also more demand for land to grow these staple crops. And more demand for crops also, does not implicitly mean that agricultural systems are being modernized, but they are still produced within traditional mixed farming methods, which I will also briefly characterize in a subsequent slide, and which leads to forest degradation. So mixed farming methods lead to forest degradation. More demand for land leads to deforestation. And it was expected that forest degradation and deforestation would lead to accelerated surface flow, soil erosion, and rapid flow of water into the lowlands and flooding in the lowlands with supposedly horrific consequences in countries like Bangladesh. In a World Bank report of 1979, that was 2 years before I actually went to Nepal, predicted the almost complete deforestation of Nepal by 1997 or by the turn of the millennium. That was the debate then. And that was also actually the context which motivated my research. Next slide shows some photographs that I took in the field when I was in Nepal. Oh, no, sorry, that was actually exemplifies, that leads to the next slide. And that exemplifies what was said about the impact or the role of traditional farming methods, in which livestock plays a very important role. Livestock are kept by most farmers in the mid-hills, mainly as a source of natural manure for maintaining the fertility on the fields. Livestock requires fodder. Fodder is to some extent provided by crop residues from various types of fields, and they are also provided from grassland on which animals graze or from which grasses are grown. But the problem is there, we are in a monsoonal climate, there is a dry season, and the dry season grasslands dry up. Also, the crop residues from the fields are eaten up relatively quickly, and then farmers rely on forests as a source of fodder, especially on deciduous trees in mid-hill forests, which still produce leaves in the dry season, and these leaves are then cut or harvested from the forest, carried onto the fields, carried into the stables as fodder for the animals. And it was especially this pressure on forests for leaf fodder that was supposed to be one of the driving forces for forest degradation in the mid-hills. And next slide, please. And that is shown in the lower photograph. That was Sindhupalchok district. That's the landscape that I experienced when I was there 40 years ago. A lot of deforestation, a lot of bare land, and in the foreground, degraded forest. A typical silhouette of trees that are thin, because all the branches have been lopped from them, carried into the villages for the leaves to be fed to animals. But so that is the altitude around maybe, let's say, 1,500, 2,000 meters. I was working above 3,000 meters, and there, to my surprise, and that's the photograph above, I found already then indication of an expansion of forest, regeneration of forest on agricultural land. Now, if you look closely, you can see on the on the forest fringe that the forest grows onto terraces. So the upper terraces have apparently been abandoned and are now reclaimed by forest. Upon inquiry, that was due to migration, out-migration of hill farmers into the lowlands, where due to malaria eradication campaigns of the 1950s, fertile agricultural land had recently become available. So, and this process, of which I've seen really only a marginal evidence, has apparently really accelerated and become quite large scale. Next slide, please. And that is the phenomenon of Nepal's regenerating forests. In the NASA article mentions that from 1992 to 2016, the forest cover of Nepal has almost doubled from 26% to 45%. That's amazing. Now, this is, of course, that's the dynamics, very dynamic, I would say. And these dynamics are driven by a very complex set of factors, which I think at this stage, nobody really has unraveled yet. But there is evidence of two important drivers, which I would also explain in a bit more detail in the remaining time. The impact of community forestry from the 1970s until the present, and the impact of international labor migration from the 1990s to the present. Next slide, please. I think that most all of you nearly will be familiar with community forestry. That's a concept that was propagated, especially by FAO and World Bank, from the 1970s onwards, and which basically means that is a mechanism of creating cooperation between forest administration, forestry agencies, and local people represented by communities. The aims are mainly twofold: to stop or mitigate deforestation and to improve livelihoods of people. There is a wide range of ways how this can be implemented. Next slide, please. Nepal is considered to be the success story of community forestry. Community forestry was introduced in 1978, and then the important date here is 1993, the Forest Act of 1993, which codified the concept of community forest user groups. Now, these are groups of villagers which constitute themselves and which then, in collaboration with the forest department, develop operational plans. That actually has been sort of a very successful concept, which motivated farmers because or communities, because they definitely could get benefits from managing forests sustainably or even increasing forest cover. And it was so successful that today about 1/3 of Nepal's forest cover is community forest. And a lot of these new forests that we saw on these previous maps are community forests. So that was the impact of community forestry. And by the way, when in 2 weeks' time we'll be traveling to Nepal, it will be to work with one of these forest user groups in, again, sort of developing an operation plan for a very specific purpose. Next slide, please. The second the next important term was labor migration and land abandonment that is apparently happening in conjunction with labor migration. I found figures that between 2001 and 2010, about 9.7 million hectares, which is about 24% of the total cultivated of land area, was abandoned within a time period of 10 years. Again, this is amazing dynamics. Again, the causes of this abandonment are complex, but it seems that outmigration, predominantly of young males from rural areas, seems to play an important role. This started, we can say, in about 1996, when Nepal was in the throes of a civil war due to the Maoist uprising, and a lot of the young men actually fled from the countryside in order to avoid forced conscription into the rebel forces, and they migrated to Kathmandu or outside of the country. But after the end of the civil war, this continued, but now under different auspices. There were very sort of absorptive labor markets, especially in the Gulf region. And over time, more and more young people really became migrant laborers outside of Nepal, or even within Kathmandu, but mostly outside of Nepal. And as a result of the outmigration, land apparently was abandoned, even though we do not yet quite understand the processes. There is a strong evidence from remote sensing material that this abandoned cropland, or a lot of it, is reverting to forest. Now, that is something to look into, because if such sort of, if forest expands now onto such a significant amount of land, now, this can provide challenges for people through human-wildlife conflicts, for instance, but it can also provide opportunities for conservation or management. Now, these new forests could be the beginning of forest restoration for restoring more or less natural forests, or they could become a source of maybe different livelihoods for people, an opportunity for livelihood diversification. And that is again something that we are hoping to study in another, hopefully upcoming research project. I would like to sum up what I've said. Next slide, please. By indicating again that forest ecosystems in the Nepal Himalaya are undergoing rapid changes. And 40 years ago, if somebody would have said, I was totally sure 40 years ago that deforestation would just go on, population would grow, and forests poverty would not really be alleviated, forests would be degraded. Most of the people that I was working with were of the same opinion. Nobody thought about migration, which is also another lesson that I learned, to be careful with predictions and with some or with scenarios. But that's just by the way. Okay, there are changes, sometimes unexpected changes. Changes are driven by a complex set of factors and actors. Understanding the complex interplay of these factors and actors is important because it may show us, or it may help us to identify points where we can intervene with policies or with projects or with research. And in the case of the regenerating forests of the Nepal Himalaya, decisions on how to manage this emerging natural resource must be based on knowledge, some main points, on the reasons for abandoning the land, on the aspirations of farmers concerning the land and their livelihoods. Do they still have some thoughts about using this land, maybe in the near future? We need to understand the regeneration processes and the effects they have on the land and on the livelihoods. And we need to understand the socioeconomic and social-political context of decisions made by stakeholders. This concludes my learning curve of over 40 years and some of the insights that I've gained over this time. And I hope that this will have been of interest to you. And I see that quite a number of also participants that will be speaking later on are from the Himalayas. We'll be talking about the Himalayas. So we may be coming back to some of these issues later on. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you, Professor, for your great intervention. So I guess all of us, the audiences, must have enjoyed his lecture from very deep perspective about the Nepal's forestry and the natural resources aspects. So thank you so much once again. Our next speaker will be Professor Vishwambar Prasad Sati. He is a senior professor at the Department of Geography and Resources Management, Mizoram University in India. So with us, he is the Senior Global Fellow at the Global Leadership Program. So he is a very senior scholar and a professor at this university, having in his credit many publications, including recent books published by Springer, how to pronounce. So today his lecture will be focused on ecosystem services for livelihood sustainability in the Indian Central Himalaya. So thank you, Professor, to be with us. So now I hand over to you. Please share your slides and then take over.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hasrat, and dear participants. Good evening from India. I have to share my presentation or
yes, you do, please. You do,
okay,
please.
Okay. So,
everybody should be ready for that, sharing this. And one more announcement is that the audience are requested to write their questions to the speaker, either in the chat box or in the question and answers. Okay, please.
Yes,
please
yes, I'm doing.
Share your
I'm
screen.
doing. Yeah. Where is this? So it is fine.
Yes, you just do it the slide share mode.
That because that I cannot do.
No. There is one on the bottom of your slide. There is one icon. Slide show. Yes. Go.
Yeah, that I know. But when I go with this, no, it will not scroll down. I have previous experiences.
Try to do now and then see.
Okay. So this is a grassroots global leadership program, and the webinar is on resource conservation and management in mountain ecosystem. I am presenting my paper on ecosystem services for livelihood sustainability in the Himalaya But the scope of my presentation is only up to the that the Indian Central Himalayan region, that is also called the Uttarakhand Himalaya. So now it is scrolling down, sir. No,
Oh, please just complete 15 minutes you have. Don't
but
waste the time.
you can see the another slide now.
No.
Yeah, that's why I just told you, because this cannot be done. So I will go simply
Okay.
without, yeah, like this. Now it can be seen now. Okay.
Okay, right.
Okay, so the outlines of my presentation will be like this. I will talk about a little bit about Indian Central Himalayan region, and then I will talk about the ecosystem services potential, particularly in this region. I'll talk about water, forest, land, agriculture, or spectacular landscape for tourism development. I will also talk about that how the people using these natural resources, these ecosystem services. And also I will talk about what is the role of ecosystem services for livelihood sustainability in this particular region. So this is the this Indian Himalayan region, and within this Indian Himalayan region is located a very important or integral part of the Himalaya that is called the Indian Central Himalayan region. And it has very strategical locations also, and it has very huge natural resources potential for livelihood sustainability. So in terms of the ecosystem services and overview that I'm showing before you is that this region has the mighty Himalaya, number of glaciers, then coming down the grasslands, alpine grasslands are there where the animal pasturing is done. The people, they go during the summer season, they migrate and with their animals for pasturing. And then below down is the huge or dense forest area, coniferous forest, as well as mixed oak forest. And below that is the pine forest. And then there are a number of river valleys where huge forest, land, and water resources are found. I will talk about the water ecosystem services. So if you see these two maps, the first one shows that the glaciers, they are abundantly distributed in the north part of the central Himalayan regions from west to east, and there are a number of glaciers. They are feeding also number of rivers, the largest river systems, not only in India, but also of the world. And then in the second map, you can see that a number of river systems there in the west is the Yamuna system, in the middle is Bhagirathi, Alaknanda system, and in the eastern part of this region is the Kali system. They all are glacial feeds, and they are huge rivers, and they are perennial. So if we see that the water potentiality of these rivers, I have some data on that annual drainage. So if you look into the Yamuna River has 649 crore cubic meter that annual drainage. The Kali River has 730 crore cubic meter. Bhagirathi River has 253. Then Alaknanda has 534, and the Ramganga West has 500. So it means that the water potentiality is very high in the entire this central Himalayan region. Some of the major river systems in the Garhwal and Kumaon Himalaya that I will show you, that the Alaknanda River, then Yamuna River, Tons River, and also the Bhagirathi River. They are very huge river systems of India, and they are also feeding more than 600 million people in the downstream areas in terms of water, and also in terms of the fertile soils eroding from the Himalaya and transporting it and depositing in the Ganges Valley, where the population is very dense, and they enjoy all these, ecosystem services. In terms of the major rivers of Kumaon Himalaya, there are Kali River, then Ramganga River, then Gomati River, then Saryu River, and these are the major rivers I'm showing. But there is hundreds of rivers. They are all glacial floods and providing all ecosystem services, mainly to the downstream area. So my point is that that this upstream areas where these rivers are originating, the people are facing lots of problems, but all the ecosystem is going, services going to the downstream area. So that was the reason that I wanted to show you that how we can enhance the livelihood of the people, those are living in the upstream area using all these ecosystem services we'll talk about. So in terms of the glaciers, I'm showing you two huge glaciers of the central Himalayas, the Satopan, where from the Alaknanda River is originating, and then also the Pindari Glacier, where the Pindar River is originating, and all the rivers are glacial fed, so they are very huge river systems in this region. So my previous speaker also talk about the forest in Nepal, and I'm also talking about how rich the region is in terms of the forest ecosystem. If you see this graph, vertical distribution of forest, you will find that there are varieties of forests from tropical below 300 meter to subtropical in between 300 to 1100 meter, then temperate forest, then cold forest, and also frigid forest. These are called the alpine meadows. And there are then diversities in forest species, like in the tropical region, there are teak forest, in subtropical, the pine forest. Temperate forests are found as a mixed oak forest or as a coniferous forest, also found in cold area. And then alpine meadows, grasslands are extensively distributed in these highland areas, which are very, growing very economically viable medicinal plants. So if we see this vertical distribution of forest cover, the highest forest cover is if we have altitudinal zones and the area under forest in percentage. So the highest area, that is 41%, is distributed between 1000 to 2000 meter altitude. The forest is very less below 500 meter and also above 4000 meter. And most of the forests are found in between 500 to 3000 meter altitude. And they have also different types of forest, very dense forest also. It covers 19.6%, medium dense forest cover 56%, open forest 24%. So if you see the dense forest also, they are very, the percentage is very high. If you look into this forest types and distribution in that central Himalayan region, the entire, as I shown you through the figure, that this is in the middle altitude mainly, from 1000 to 3000 meter, all the forests are distributed. And there was one, conversion going on between us in that chatting in question answer, in the question answer, that the Indian Himalayan region has this forest percentage is decreased. No, there was 0.4% increase from 2019 to 2021. So now in Uttarakhand, definitely the forest coverage is increasing, and it is not naturally increasing, but it is through the forestation programs, afforestation programs that are largely, convinced by the state and the central government and forest department. So in terms of the forest cover, now it is increasing. During 2005 and 2011, there was a slight decrease in forest area. So you can see these pictures that the diversity and the richness of forest in this region, from subtropical to temperate. We have teak forest, pine forest, mixed oak forest, and deodar forest in all the altitudinal gradients, and they have very rich economic viability. So Uttarakhand has 63 point forest area, and out of which 16% is under protected areas. There are 7 national parks with 4,083 square kilometer area, And there are also wildlife sanctuaries. There are 6 in number, and their area is 2,868%, which means that a number of conserved and protected areas are there in the central Himalayan region. So what these forests are providing in terms of the goods and services, the major goods are firewood, fodder, timber, non-timber forest, products, medicinal plants, resin and ringol. They are the major goods, means tangible assets the forests are providing in this region. And the services also, because the entire central Himalayan region is highly fragile for, the soil erosion is very huge there. So these forests are conserving soil. They are protecting and regulating the water supplies, keeping climate moderate, because the climate of this region is very healthy also. Absorption of dust, habitat for wildlife, because the number of wildlife has increased after the Forest Act or the Wildlife Act that was implemented in the central Himalayan region. They are the major center for recreation or tourism, so the people earning money also, and they are also source of carbon sequestration. This is particularly in terms of the central Himalayan region. So if we see the agroforestry, this vertical distribution and horizontal distribution, so also because climate varies from tropical to frigid winter, frigid cold, frigid in the alpine meadows, it is frigid winter, because alpine meadow 4 months there is a summer. So because the variety of climate is there, so a number of crop races, cultivars, they are grown. There are the areas where that monocropping is there in the valley regions. But when you go to the higher altitude, you will find that varieties rich, this agrobiodiversity is found there. And there are some regions where more than 12 grains they are cultivated in a single field. And then this shows that very rich agrobiodiversity in this region. And in this figure, you can see that there are the agriculture fields where 12 grains grown together in a particular field. Then there are monocropping like paddy, and also off-season vegetables are now being started in the valley regions where water facilities or water for irrigation is available. And also after, after 2000, the government has started cultivating tea in this region very extensively. So in terms of the spectacular landscape for ecotourism or for this pilgrimage tourism, it also supplies very services, ecosystem services for tourism. So there are a number of highland pilgrimages, river valley pilgrimages, as well as I have already told that there are a number of wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. They are providing all these that ecosystem services for ecotourism. And there are a number of tourist pilgrims. They are visiting every year in the highland pilgrimages or resorts or the natural towns and cities for wilderness and leisures, and they are enhancing the income. So when we see this use pattern of ecosystem services, so this figure shows that this hydroelectricity power project in the central Himalayan region. So there are hundreds of hydropower projects. Some are under construction, some are proposed, and some are already constructed. The Teri High Dam is one of the Asia's biggest dam, producing more than 5,000 megawatt electricity. And then this entire area has more than 30,000 megawatt electricity production capacity, and many are functioning in this region.
Professor, sorry to interrupt. You have only 2 minutes left.
Okay. So I will just. So in this, you can see the figure that the Teri High Dam, and then there is another dam that is producing 400 megawatt. And then use pattern, how the people, they are using the fodder for animal, then this fuel wood for, that cooking and warming houses, and then small hydroelectricity power projects. They are using this ecosystem services, but at the same time, there are plenties and scarcities of water. on the one hand, plenty of water. On the other hand, there is large scarcity of water, you can see. And then some important facts that the people say that the youth and water has drained to the plain because all the, as I told you, ecosystem services are, utilizing by the downstream areas, upstream areas are very poor in this way. And then I will just conclude like this, that what can be done. So this water, forest, and land are the major sources of livelihood of the people of that central Himalayan region. Rights of the local people should be given rationally because you know that we have to use this sustainably, and then we have to give this benefits to the local people. Green bonus and share of ecosystem services should be given to native people in mountain regions. Employment to the native people in the sectors such as infrastructure development projects, including hydropower projects, should be given during all these infrastructure projects, because people coming from the other area, they are working there, and again the local people are not getting benefit out of it, so the employment can be given to them. And environmental tax should be levied on the beneficiaries of the downstream river basins, and its share should be given to rural people of mountain regions, and it will enhance livelihood of the rural mountainous areas. These are some publications: Himalaya on the threshold of change, sustainable tourism development in the Himalaya, constant and process. And there are a number of key publications. They are published in very good journals. And I thank you very much for your kind support, cooperation, and thank you for listening in patiently. And thank you all very much. I will stop sharing. And that.
Thank you, Dr. Sati. Please, for the next speakers, I just again request please be on time and you do not waste the time on just giving unnecessary details. So the next speaker with us is Professor Dr. Sanjay Swami. He is also the professor at the School of Natural Resource Management at the Central Agricultural University in Meghalaya of Northeast India. So with us, he is also the Senior Global Fellow, and his intervention will be related to nature-based solutions for agricultural sustainability in hill ecosystems. So Professor Sanjay, please come on and share your screen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hasrat, for introducing me, and very good evening to all the dignitaries and dear participants. As Dr. Hasrat has told that I am going to deal with the nature-based solutions, particularly in the Northeast Indian region. So let me share my presentation.
The next one, everybody should be very quickly ready, okay?
Yeah, I think my slides are visible.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I am dealing with the nature-based solution for agricultural sustainability in hill ecosystems of Northeast India. This is the sequence of my presentation that I am going to just say a few words about the background. These nature-based solutions are required as of today, and then what are the nature-based solutions, what actually they mean, and thereafter I will deal with some of the solutions, nature-based solutions which are prevalent in the Northeast Indian region, particularly the Jabo farming system of Nagaland state, then bamboo drip irrigation system of Meghalaya, and then recently modified drip irrigation system in Meghalaya, then elder-based farming system in Nagaland, and of course then I am going to give some conclusion based on my presentation. So friends, you see that after the green revolution, definitely we are able to produce more, and at the same time we have depleted our natural resources. We see that whatever we are growing, high-yielding varieties, they need more nutrition, more water, and because of that, we have exploited our natural resources. We have seen only the human being. We have not bothered about the rest of biodiversity, and therefore, at this time, we are facing different type of challenge like the soil degradation, because our soil resources is deteriorating at a very fast rate. If you see the trend of 2015 to 2020, the global demand for NPK fertilizers is growing rapidly. That is 1.5, 2.2, and 2.4% annually in case of NPK fertilizers. Likewise, if we see the global pesticides usage, it is also increasing, and it is around 3.5 million tons. Likewise, the FAO has reported that our soil resources, almost 52% of global agricultural soil resources are degraded by one or other means. So we can say that even soil carbon content is decreasing with respect to Indian conditions, and the agriculture sector that is contributing almost 11% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. In nutshell, I want to say that because of these over utilization or over exploitation of natural resources, we are facing many you can say the problems, and the main issues are the factor productivity is declining. We have mined our nutrient resources, and we are facing the multiple nutrient deficiencies. Soil degraded because of the intensive tillage practices. Soil organic carbon is also decreased. These are the major issues which we are facing. And the solution, what we see that only the nature-based solutions are effective in the present scenario. And coming to the nature-based solution, what actually these are. Friends, if you see the nature-based solutions, this is one of the, you can say, the umbrella terms, which is used for the traditional knowledge, which our forefather, our ancestors are using since long time, long back. So all these actions which are in harmony with nature, these are nature-based solutions. Or the IUCN has defined all the actions which can address the present problem of our society by the means of protection, management, and restoration of the ecosystem, which can benefit both the things, human being as well as biodiversity. And these solutions, they are able to contribute towards food security. They are providing raw material. They contribute towards waste recycling, carbon storage, water filtration, and then climate regulation, biodiversity conservation, recreation. That means all the societal needs we can address by these systems. And definitely the X, they are not new, but earlier they are known in the name of different type of terms like climate smart agriculture, conservation agriculture, traditional practices of farming, natural farming. So all these practices are coming under the nature based solutions. Then coming to the Northeast India, friends, because you know that Northeast India is a tribal region. It is almost mountainous region. If you see the scenario, then almost 56% of the region is having low altitude range, whereas 3% is having mid altitude range, and 11% is with high altitude mountainous regions. And because these tribal farmers, they are having a very sound wisdom. Their ancestors, they are doing agriculture with harmony with nature, because all these practices which they are following are traditionally, you can say, the bounded with the rituals, their festivals, their folk dance. Therefore, still they are prevalent and very effectively they are contributing toward the society and you can say the environment protection. And one of this practice is Jabo farming system. It is prevalent in Nagaland, and this unique system is originated from one village that is named Kikruma in Nagaland. And what actually in this system, they say they are protecting the top forest area, and that top forest area is working as catchment area. And from there, different channels, they are coming towards the lower side, and the water harvested is first goes into the sedimentary sedimentary ponds, and then it is coming to water harvesting pond. And this collected, this stored water, that is passed through the livestock area, and after mixing with the urine, dung, all those fertility elements, this is going to means fields. That means it is enriched with the nutrient elements and being used for irrigation of the crops, particularly the paddy. And paddy is also taken with the fish. So this is actually a multiple cropping system. In the next slide, I am showing the pictures. I think you will be able to understand more. See, in the top area, it is the catchment area, and from there the water is being coming with the different channels. And first is it is going to siltation tank, then water harvesting tank, then it is going from the sand, then it is coming to the uh, uh, paddy fields. And here they are taking paddy along with the fish. These are the real pictures of that particular area. This is the Kikruma village we have visited. You can see this forest area. This is the catchment area. The channel water channels are coming, and here you see this entire system is on community basis. The each channel belongs to a particular farmer, and each tree is assigned to farmers. That means they have to protect the catchment area, they have to protect the forest area, and they have to maintain this channel. And then the water is coming from to the siltation tank, and from there, from the siltation tank, this water is coming to the water harvesting tank, and then it is passed through the animal shed area, and then it is being utilized. This is the system. Actually, the Jabo means the compounding of water. Here you can see the integration of forestry, horticulture, agriculture, fishery, and livestock. And the you can say the productivity and particularly the fertility of the soils is very good. And the tribal people still they are using the traditional varieties, therefore the yield is less, but that varieties they are as per their taste. Then the next bamboo based drip irrigation system, this practice is being utilized in Meghalaya. Friends, as I told you that majority of the fields in Meghalaya are situated across the hilly slopes, and there the water retention capacity is very poor. Water bringing from the distance water sources through the field, it is a very big challenge. Ground channeling, channeling is very difficult. And of course, bamboos, they are naturally found here in plenty of the quantity, so one can get very easily. So this
Doctor, you
system
have only
was
2 minutes left, please.
okay.
Finish in
So
two
here
minutes.
what they are doing, they are preparing the different primary and second branches through the bamboos, and these bamboo are being used. Just you can have a look how these bamboo are being used to irrigate the crops. And after modification, even in a scientific manner, we can go for the scientifically spaced crops also. Thereafter, one more system is elder-based farming system, and it is you can say the agroforestry system where the elder tree is being utilized because it is a non-leguminous tree, but still it has the capacity of fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. And of course, the tree has the very good root system that bind the soil particles and contributes towards soil conservation. It reduces the soil erosion. And here you can see the per hectare plantation, different number of plantation plants of the elder, how it is contributed toward the yield. So here different plants, how much they contribute liter and how much quantity they able to add with respect to nitrogen, that is given here. And here the different system are compared, and you can see the elder based system is also performing very well, particularly with respect to soil organic carbon. It is almost comparable with the hedge based agroforestry system. Likewise, if you see the microbial biomass carbon, microbial biomass nitrogen, and particulate organic carbon, you can see the system here because we are incorporating the litter of the elder tree. You can see how it is effective if we see in respect of other systems. So in nutshell, I want to convey that nature-based solutions play a very important role in preserving the biodiversity, protecting food security, enriching our soil, restoring our soil, fighting against climate change implications. And here I have discussed 2-3 systems which are particularly prevailing in the Northeast India. So with this, thank you so much for listening patiently. And of course, I thank the organizer for providing me this opportunity to share a few of my views. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Sanjay. You have very nicely presented the very unique systems existing in the Northeast Indian part of India, particularly the drip irrigation, elder systems, and Zabo farming systems. So thank you again, once again, for your contribution. Now, from the South Asian Himalayan mountains, we will now go to the dry highlands of Africa. Okay, so with us, the next speaker is Dr. Ayman Mustafa Yasin. He is the Associate Professor at the Faculty of Health Sciences, the Misurata University in Libya. So, but his intervention will be focused on camel systems and pastoralist nutrition security in dry highlands, with the case of Sudan. So with us, he is associated as the Senior Global Fellow. So I invite Dr. Ayman to be with us and present. Take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hasrat, for introducing me. Good afternoon from Libya to everybody in webinars. And the first,
please share your screen and don't waste time. Yes, go ahead quickly.
Okay.
Yes, working.
I'm going to talk about my topic, the camel.
Do it a full screen mode.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Camel system and the pastoral nutrition security in the arid land. We'll focus on the very important point in this presentation, camel pastoral system, socio-economic aspect of the camel pastoral the community, the constraint limitations for the camel production, dietary requirements and the household food security, and the pastoralist livelihood and nutrition security. This diagram very important to conclude for us the correlation of the nutrition security with environmental conservation, with sustainability of the production, and then the food security, health security, and adequate caring practice. Background, let us to talk about the camel. Why camel in this time? Because they say the camel is animal for future in climate change and extension of the desert and arid. So camel is considered as the best animal for the arid and the semi-arid area, where it is products comprises a significant part of the human dietary habits. Despite camel considerable contribution to the food security of the nomadic pastoral household, it is production potential compared to other domestic animals. Well, the camel meat and the camel milk play a key role in human nutrition in the hot and the arid regions among the worldwide. So, increase the human production, pressure and the decline per capita production of the food in Africa precipitate an urgent need to develop previously marginal resources such as the semi-arid and arid rangelands, and to optimize their utilization through opportunity livestock production system, among which camel production is certainly the most sustainable, So the dry land in Sudan, let us to know about the background of the dry land in Sudan. So this ecology of Sudan has shifted toward a predominantly dry land environment. The dry land south of the Sahara is typically of Sahelian zone, and it is divided between the low rainfall savanna in the north and to the south, the higher rainfall savanna that extends into the South Sudan. Precipitation is highly variable with the gradually increasing the rainfall from 100 millimeter in the north on the edge of the Sahara to 600 millimeter southward into the south. The rainy season lasts less than the 2 months in the north and extends up to the 4 months in the south. This is extremely rainful variability over time and space have remarkable impact on the distribution of vegetarian and water sources. So this research methodology started with, this is the research was covered the regions. This should be the main camel production region in Sudan, such as Butana, Kordofan, and Darfur region. Survey have been done to reflect the camel pastoralists or the camel herders overview and concepts regarding the pastoral system, socioeconomic aspect, and the production limitation. Dietary habits also very important here investigated, and the camel nutrition, pastoralist nutrition security and the livelihood were also determined among the pastoralists in the main region of the camel. So the method should be have been used in the collect of the data through the three main method: direct contact with the pastoralist chairman in the different areas, and then the field visit, in addition to the questionnaire, well-structured questionnaire that conducted, distributed among the pastoralists or the participants in this study. Nomadic host habit, who inhabit the desert and the semi-desert region in the Sudan, the camel play important culture, economic, and the social role in the life of these communities. We have the three main camel production are adopted in this area. The camel production system will be adopted in Sudan in the three system. This is considered as the main camel system in Sudan: traditional nomadic system, transhuman system, and sedentary and the semi-sedentary system. Let us to briefly to talk about each one. Traditional nomadic system is dominant in geographical zone between 13 north to 16 north. They say that north part of the camel belt. This is typically practiced by the Kababish tribe in North Kordofan, and also by the Rizegat and Zakawa tribes in Darfur regions. The camel herders are continuously on the movement, seeking for the grazing and the water supply elsewhere. And it may be that extent. This system will cover about the 73% of the camel production system in Sudan. Another one, transhuman or the semi-nomadic system. This is system found in the Eastern Sudan region, in the Eastern Sudan or the East-South Sudan. This is system. This differs than the previous one, because in this system, a degree of the settlement is that experience it during the rainy season, because the pastoralists, they have to call it as agro-pastoralists, because in this system where the rainfall agriculture is practiced for stable food production and the crop residuals that to provide the feed supplement for the camel population. In this system found that the system found in the Butana region, Eastern Sudan, and maybe that extend up to say 22% of the camel production system in Sudan. The last one, the sedentary or the semi-sedentary system, this is practiced in the eastern region of the Sudan, or also that till the Nile and the west of Red Sea hills. This is very little when also that around the big towns and the capital. And also that there's some few of the pastoralists in the agriculture area, central Sudan, that practice like this one, also that found in the south part of the camel belt. This system may be cover about the 5% of the total camel production system. Let us go on to talk about the investigations that have conducted regarding the participant in this study. The education level regarding the pastoralists will let us to show the wide proportion as illiterated. That means the almost of the pastoralists in the different regions of the camel production, they are illiterated, that will be extend about the 80%. And then the primary school.
Dr. Ayman, you have 3 minutes left. So please
okay.
be fast and
okay.
Only necessary things you can explain.
Okay. At the pastoralist, they have very clear here, the maybe that from 25 to 45 years of the pastoralist, and then the member production system in that differs according to the region. We find that in Butana, that transhuman system is the predominant, where the nomadic system it is more dominant in the Darfur and the Kordofans rather than the sedentary. It is very few sedentary system, and also that the purpose of the rearing the pastoral system that differs according to consecutive of the pastoralists. You'll find that many of the pastoralists that inherited the camel herds from their parent, and then commitment generation to generation, where also very few ones that herding the camel, ordering the camel just for the food security, and also very few for the social prestige. But also that you have looked for the some pastoralists rearing the camels just for the trading across the border that will be that exported to the Egypt and exported to the Libya and the Gulf countries. The problem that they're facing the pastoral system in Sudan, we have many problems in that facing the pastoral communities, such as the lack of the medical service. Lack of the medical service, that means veterinary service or the central or the hospital, the service regarding the community or the pastoral community. And also that for the shortage of the food and the shortage of the water, also that in the dry season, they are facing or the suffering from the big problem that facing the pastoral community, such as, and also that the lack of the security. If also that we have detected the lack of the security in the some regions, such as in the Kordofan and Darfur, due to the internal conflict there. Also, this contribution of the camel milk, very important to mention contribution of the camel milk, because the camel milk and the camel meat regarding the household food security, it is very clear for an income that from the cell animal maybe 10 about 20 to 90%. And also that an annual income for the milk and the milk products maybe 10 to 5 to 10% of the full household food security and annual income. But also that the contribution of the milk is pastoralist diet maybe 50 to 66% milk contribution, very important regarding the young children. There in this research, we have focused on the young children. Is it milk or the meat or animal products that cover their needs? That very clear here in this tables, that the contribution of the camel of the calories regarding the young children maybe that about 1 liter of the camel will be covered about 40 to 45% of their needs. And then regarding the protein and the vitamins C and vitamins A, maybe that differs variables. Maybe it extends from the 60 up to 100% will be covered by, if they are intake about the 500 milliliter from the camel milk will be that satisfied.
Doctor, your time is over, please. You
okay.
just conclude in half minute. Yes. We cannot stretch more.
Okay, this is variable group in the pastoral area. Let us to talk about the acute food security that facing the pastoral community and the conflict and epidemic causes and the epidemic that causing the sudden reduction in the animal. Also, women who that suffer from in this pastoral community because they have limiting the finance capitals and also that very limit education and health and internal conflict and maybe target the women and the girls. Also that few livestock economic activities that that compounded by the cultural gender discriminations. Pastoral children also that they have decrease in the milk supplies in the drought years and also that in the arid season, and also that weak health system and the failed for the disease prevention and especially the cholera, measles, and parasitic disease. Also, the variable of the pastoral elders, they have facing the problem of the financial, the capital, and inability to work and the limited ability to migrate, and also weak health service. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Ayman. It's very nice that he has spoken in English because his native language is in Arabic and he also teaches in Arabic in Libya. So it's great that he has delivered with his English. Very good, very nice. So camel is really the animal for the future. And recently there was a big festival in Mongolia on the camels. And same was in India too in the month of November last year. So these are the perennial events happening, and camel is in the focus these days. Thank you very much. Next speaker we have with us is Clara. Now we will move with Clara to the Central Asian part, particularly in Kyrgyzstan. So she will be talking about the sustainable utilization of the mountain forest ecosystems and will be explaining the case of walnut forest in Kyrgyzstan. She's a young fellow with us And Clara is a junior researcher at the very prominent Center for Development Research, ZEF, with the University of Bonn, Germany. And she's also a doctoral student at the, how to pronounce this, Rheinwald University of Applied Sciences. Okay, thank you, Clara, to you. Now you please, yeah, you started. Thank you. Take over.
Yes, thank you. Let me share my presentation and
You please switch off your phone, is the echoing. That is echoing.
I think it should work well now.
Yeah, fine. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Indeed, I'm a young fellow, so I will be representing only a small part of my research. It's my doctoral research that I'm doing at the moment. I'm focusing on the agent-based simulation modeling within the walnut fruit forest in Kyrgyzstan. Let me tell some more information about my presentation first. So I will be making a brief introduction into my research area, providing the problems currently faced in this region, then introduce some innovations in forest management that I'm currently analyzing, and provide a brief information about the methodology I'm currently using, the field data collection information, and this will be basically it because my results are not yet ready. So that's why it will be a very brief presentation. And as I have already mentioned, my research area are located in Kyrgyzstan, that is in Central Asia. As you can see here on the map, those are the wild growing walnut fruit forests in the southern part of the country. Those forests are the only remaining wildly growing walnut forests in the world. So this is a very important forest area for biodiversity conservation. It's considered a biodiversity hotspot in the world. And those are the mountain forests located in a temperate zone between the 800 and 2400 meters above the sea level. Currently, an average area of those forests consists 47,000 hectares. And of course, we see that within mountain forest, we see a different zonation depending on the latitude of the forest. So if we say that latitude until 1400, between 1000 and 1400 meters above the sea level, we see a low subzone, which is a little bit drier in comparison to the upper mid zone between 1400 and 1750 meters above the sea level, and the upper subzone that is higher than 1700 meters above the sea level. So it's the temperatures are a little bit colder up there, and the conditions for the growth of the walnuts are a little bit difficult. So the best zone within the mountains are considered to be the medium subzone between 1400 and 1700 meters above the sea level, with mild temperature and a good amount of precipitation that is about 1000 millimeters of an average annual precipitations. As we can see here within the forest, it's not only the walnuts that are wildly growing, but also other different fruits and berries, very characteristic to the temperate areas, like wild apples, wild cherries, wild cherry plums that are growing out there. And all those biological resources are of high importance for our current agriculture. And that makes the forest of high conservation importance. Coming to the land tenure, land ownership, the forests are state-owned, and the local communities that live near those forests are highly dependent on those forests. They collect walnuts, they collect some wood, and also graze their livestock. So it's an important source of income for their livelihoods. And due to the state-owned land tenure, the local communities, they use the forest lands based on the lease contracts that they make with the local forestry office, the state-owned forestry office, and the contracts last for about 5 years, and sometimes it might last for 10 or 50 years, depending on the type of the contracts. And as I have already mentioned, you can see here a big picture of a standard, an average family living near those forests. They have just collected walnuts and now drying their walnuts near their house. And this is the average household. What they do, they collect wild walnuts and wild nuts, berries and mushrooms. You can see here conventional value chain of walnuts here in Kyrgyzstan. As I've mentioned, so the small households or the individual tenants, as you can see here in green, they obtain a contract in order to obtain a right to use for about 3 to 5 hectares of the forest plots within the walnut fruit forest, and they collect non-timber forest products and then resell it. Either they resell it to the middleman or to the small traders that they then resell it further on the market, or either households. There are also some households that sell the non-timber forest product directly, go to the local market and sell it there. There is another set of users of the forest resources. Those are the family processors. So they not just collect and sell or resell the non-timber forest product, but they also process them. So they clean it, crack the nuts, sort them out, sometimes even pack it and then resell it for a higher price on the local markets, or either they resell all those pre-processed walnuts to the large-scale processors. So here's another stakeholders on the market. The large-scale processors, they process the walnuts and other non-timber forest products in large amounts. So they obtain the collected non-timber forest products from other small households and then clean it, sort it, pack it and resell it either on the local wholesaler market, or there is also an export to outside of the country, for example, to China or Turkey. So as I have mentioned here, the local households use the forest plots based on the lease contracts for up to 5 or 49 years, and those forests are state-owned, and there is no sense of ownership to the forest of the household, and that's one of the conditions might influence the forest use within these areas. And but we can see what kind of problems are observed in those areas within the status quo with the current conventional business as usual scenario, that the local households might probably be over collecting or over harvesting the walnuts that leads to the forest degradation. Let me hide it. Yes, and we can also see that the walnut forests are overaging and there is a reduced or no reproduction of forests. So there are no new walnut seedlings or walnut trees growing out there. And it leads to a risk of losing those forests or decreasing the walnut forest area, loss of biodiversity, loss of ecosystem services. When we come to the problems related to the processing and marketing of the non-timber forest products, especially the walnuts, we can also see different difficulties related to international standards for food processing, food safety standards. There is a limited control of cleaning and processing, and sometimes there also might be some children participating in the collection and family processing of those walnuts. So this is those are the key problems that were identified as part of my research, and I'm looking into the forest management innovations that are being implemented in those areas in order to tackle those difficulties and problems. One of those innovative solutions were introduction of a fair trade labeling system. It was a pilot introduction in order to understand if this will work or not. It was a GIZ and ECO funded donor projects that lasted from 2008 until 2017, and those were about 200 walnut collectors that came together as part of this project, and they have been selling walnuts under the fair trade labeling for about 5 or 6 years. And they have obtained this certification, although there is a list of requirements that they had to follow, including the fair match system in order to ensure that their walnuts are collected in accordance with this requirements. They ensure the high quality and food safety in accordance with the requirements, so in accordance with the list of the requirements that they had. As part of this fair trade certification. They were also trained about child labor policy awareness. I have learned from the local farmers that children might be allowed to collect walnuts only outside of.
Clara, you have only 2 minutes. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So those are the key requirements of fair trade that I'm looking into. Another innovation that I'm looking into, the Forest Stewardship Council certification. It's about 52 collectors that came together to use this certification. And what I'm looking into how those innovations, the forest management innovations, might impact the future ecological situation within the walnut fruit forest. So I'm using the Land-2 spatial simulation model that helps me to combine all the parameters like the forest growth, the impact of the local households on the forest, and model the future impact on it. For that purpose, I have collected the social survey of about 510 households within the research area, and I'm currently analyzing this information. What could be interesting is that I've been collecting data in the limitations of social context because of the coronavirus. So I have used the special asset-based approach. So I haven't been talking to the households directly myself. I've been talking to the community leaders who knew everything about their members, for example, an active person on one street. And I've been using the drone footage. I've been analyzing the drone footage as part of the remote sensing data collection. This is the way how I reduced the amount of social contacts. That was the limitations of my research currently. So what I'm doing now is just researching and analyzing the data that I have collected. And to conclude, just wanted to repeat that in despite of those innovations that are happening in the forest, like fair trade certification, FSC certification, we still see the issues of forest degradation. That's why I'm analyzing what kind of trade-offs are there, what will happen if farmers will go this direction of certifying and going the sustainable certification pathway, what will happen, what will be impact on the ecological situation within the forest, and of course, there are a number of limitations that I'm facing within this study, and that's the main thing, and that's the main task that I'm doing now. I think that's it. Thank you.
Oh, this is great. Now again, we go to Himalayas with Mr. Ramnarayan. Mr. Ramnarayan is an ecologist and educator, living in Uttarakhand. So Mr. Ramnarayan with us is the senior professional fellow, and he is a very grounded expert in his field. So let us hear his views on mountain agriculture, which he has the very ground experience into it. Ramnarayanji, are you here?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hasrat.
Okay,
I'm waiting for
take
Clara
over
to stop sharing her screen so that I can share mine. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So I'm just waiting for Clara to stop sharing her screen so that I can share mine.
Okay.
Meanwhile, while she's doing that, I just wanted to say that the title of my presentation is actually a reflection of both the philosophical sense as well as the actual end of road phenomena that is playing out in mountain communities right now. And it's a statement of where we are and what is happening as we speak. The issue is very complex, so I'm going to try and restrict myself narrowly to the agricultural framework so that, okay, let me just share my screen.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, like I was saying that I'm going to try and restrict myself very narrowly to the agricultural framework and may possibly also ignore some of the more obvious issues. It's also possible that I might have bitten off more than I can say in the time. So please, I'm apologizing in advance for skipping some of the slides. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to travel extensively through Kumaon to visit and meet with farmers and explore with them the current situation of agriculture and learn from them their concerns and possibilities for the future. Along with this is my insights from the last 29 years of working in the Himalaya. The outline is basically background to where we live. I will also be able to skip some of these because the previous speakers have shared a lot. A little bit about the concerns with mountain agriculture right now. Then a case study about cannabis or hemp and why it is reflective of the current policy and political environment that exists.
Can you please enlarge your
very,
screen? Hello, can you enlarge your screen, please?
It's at full screen in my side.
Oh, no. Yeah, now it's fine. No. It's gone back.
Okay, just... Is it better now?
No. Okay, you go ahead because we will waste time on it.
Yes. Thank you. So I'll share the case study for cannabis or hemp and the complexity or the simplicity with this issue, and very briefly go over some solutions that some of my earlier speakers have also presented in brief. I'm just briefly sharing this map of the India Himalaya. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it's already been shared. I just wanted to share very briefly some statistics that even today, the rural-urban population, the ratio is very heavily in favor of people living, is heavily skewed in favor of people living in the rural areas. Himachal has 80-20, even though it seems like a modernized state. Uttarakhand has about 70-30, and that is the ratio that exists across the Himalaya. There are about 60 million people living in the entire Himalaya, and about 73,000 villages, and a lot of increased urbanization happening through various funded programs. So a lot of towns being developed, villages being converted into towns. Mountains form about 24% of the Earth's landscape. 17% of India's land area is under the Himalayan landscape, and approximately 50 million people live within the Himalayas. Just to indicate that my focus will be on these two states, Uttarakhand and Himachal, which lie in the western parts of the Himalaya and central part of the Indian Himalaya. Since 1911, the Himalaya has seen a 400% increase in population density over a period of about 100 years. This massive population increase has accompanied developments in human development indices, better access to food and secure food grain, better health services, diversified economies, and infrastructure development and opening up of the remote areas. But in this picture, I want to show this tribal group called the Vanrajis, who, despite advancements in human development indices, are not just poor and powerless, but also disadvantaged, and they find themselves in dire situations. This is also worsened by the fast depletion of their natural resource base and more concerning the loss of their fundamental democratic and political rights and control over their natural resources. Today, they've been forced to resettle onto very bad quality agriculture land from a nomadic forest dwelling existence. Which is better is very contextual and very, it's not, we won't be discussing that right now. Just to say where does the money come from and where does the employment happen? We can see in this chart that most of the employment in the mountains is in the rural and agrarian sector, is in the agrarian and pastoral sector. About 60% of the people, 50 to 60% of the people are employed in the agriculture, pastoralism, floriculture, horticulture sector. Whereas most of the income comes from manufacturing, mining, industries, and construction activities. Increasingly, the service sector, tourism, and internet-based, digital-based services are catching up in terms of actual contribution to the GDP, but it is not reflective in actual employment of people. So it's important to know that when we focus on policy, are we focusing on who is going to earn more, or are we focusing on who is going to be employed more? As you all would already be aware that mountain agriculture is an essential part of livelihoods over here. But it's not just mountain agriculture. There's a whole socio-cultural system that is built around it. The interconnectedness of people with their communities and dependence on each other, as well as dependence on the landscape for agriculture to be sustainable. The same is true for pastoralism as well, that it is heavily dependent on secure and good quality natural resource base. And it also provides a significant amount of employment to the local population. What I want to state over here is the word green is used everywhere, and everything is being greenwashed in today's day. And if this greenwashing continues, mountain communities are going to walk down a very dangerous path where ultimately to very dire situation. All of these issues that I've listed over here, I have a common thread, and they find their origins in the current paradigm of new capitalist development strategies. The recent Oxfam report on inequality of income that was published about a few months ago states that the top 1% billionaires own more than twice as much wealth as the 6.9 billion people combined. The 10 richest people on earth increased their wealth by 540 billion during the COVID pandemic, whereas in the same duration, 50% of the poorest saw a drop in their wealth. It's important to understand this context, because without this understanding, whatever solutions we propose will at best be a band-aid and may end up being a Palpatian maneuver. There are multiple issues. I will record some of them going forward and address only some of the relevant ones. This is land ownership across the Himalaya and across Uttarakhand. You can see that the current land ownership in Uttarakhand, the majority of the land holding is marginal, about 91%, and they occupy about 67% of the land area. So even when we look at agriculture, we have to see that most of the people who are practicing agriculture are small or marginal farmers. At the same point of time, only about 9% are medium and large land holdings, and they occupy about 33% of the total operated area. So any solution that we propose for agriculture has to focus on the small and marginal farmers, and not look at other solutions where we are looking at the larger and the larger and medium scale farmers. Women carry both the physical burden of agriculture in the mountains, as well as the emotional and mental burden of maintaining home, community, and conserving their natural resource base. Yet it is only in the very recent past that women have been recognized by farmers in their own right. Any decision making going forward has to include them at the core of planning and policy. I want to go across some of the issues. Degrading forests and habitat fragmentation is one of the significant concerns. Other speakers have already shared some of the reasons for degradation of the forests. There is a claim of increase in forest cover, which is actually controversial, because a lot of things that are not really forests, like horticultural areas, are being included as forests. And this also ignores the fact that the quality of forests has not been described in the forest cover that is being shown as being increasing. The remaining signs, increased erosion, increased runoff, increase in incidences of forest fire, also don't bear out the benefits of increased forest cover. It is also not borne out by the lack of resistance and resilience in forest ecosystems in response to recent climate events. These are just some examples that in the mid-80s, there was a Godavarman case which banned the felling of trees above 1,000 meters. However, as our establishments have found a way around, and using what is called the 3Ds principle, dead, dying, and diseased, and scientific logging. And using that, they continue to log forests at a fairly alarming rate. So while on paper, it seems that there are conservation mechanisms in place, but on the ground, the reality is that it is operations as normal. Similarly is the situation with mining of sand and gravel. Only in the recent past, we've seen examples of large mineral deposits being discovered or being accessed in the Himalaya. This is a magnesite mine in Almora district, where extensive areas are being converted into being made accessible to mining, and mining is continuing. Forest fires have increased tremendously over the last few decades. I want to note over here that none of the forest fires that we have are natural. They are all human induced. And there is a significant lobby of people who actually like forest fires. The logging lobby, who used dying and dead trees to as an excuse to log their forest. The pine industry, which sees an increase in the production of resin because the cheap pine trees are on fire, as well as people who are actually concerned with forest conservation but want to hide the fact that they haven't done any forest conservation work by setting their tracts on fire. Climate change and natural disasters has seen a drastic increase since 2009. In Uttarakhand, there's been a point of inflection when from then every year we've seen incidences of extreme climate events, floods, landslides, etc. We cannot directly attribute this to climate change, but or have direct causes for it. But there are compounding factors to the rapidly degrading landscape. Large-scale mud excavations for dams and roads, blasting and tunneling, impounding of unnatural large water bodies. All of these have exasperated the already fragile landscape and the impact that climate events are having on it. There are some socio-cultural reasons also. Policies that force people away from their homes are now in play. There is reduced support for local schools and health centers. They are all being driven to privatized facilities, which are expensive and relentlessly commodified. Recent budgets have also reduced the support for rural families by reducing availability of food grain and also drastically dropping the availability of employment guarantee schemes. There is a forced sale of land through eminent domain, through health or education distress, or even through forced urbanization. Kindly note that once people sell land, there is very little likelihood of them buying agricultural land or returning to a farming economy. The land instead is largely reverting to consolidated ownership of being urbanized.
Ram, your time is over, but you can sum up in 2 minutes, please.
Okay, I think I will just go through these slides that show different aspects. And I will talk about the solutions and the three-pronged solutions that or ways forward. The first is policy and political, second is technological, and the third is equitable and community-based. What I mean by this is that, 80 years ago, Gandhiji had talked about secure village republics, which are self-sufficient, politically enabled, and in charge of their own resources. But policy today is driven by neoliberal policies which intend to capitalize assets in favor of a few. Technology, there are a lot of solutions, but these are essentially band-aids unless we can address the underlying problem. I want to stop with the case of hemp and cannabis cultivation in Uttarakhand or across the Himalaya. Cannabis has been grown for thousands of years by farmers. Yet it is mostly illegal to cultivate. It forms an essential component of local food. Its fiber has been used a lot, and today there are over 25,000 documented uses, including medicine, therapy, recreation, paper, fiber, construction industry, etc. Recently, the industry, or the 1% as I call them, have moved to control this cultivation. Their first move is to make cultivation by rural households strictly illegal. And the second move is to legitimize cultivation only through contract farming. I hope your people are able to connect the dots. The policy is not meant to make it easier for farmers. It is meant to push them into being slaves of the industrialist. Cannabis is a miracle crop. It's a climate resilient crop. It doesn't require significant inputs or even significant maintenance. It can grow on many soil types. In fact, it acts to improve soil fertility in many cases. Varieties and subspecies are suitable for different climate and soil types. Just one legislation can change how farmers can benefit. Legalize the growing by farmers at any scale and anywhere, and let the buyers come to their farmers directly. Then we can see what will happen. I want to also clarify over here that today the law states that people can grow cannabis or the hemp variety, which has less than 0.3% of the psychoactive substance THC. But scientists themselves are not able to differentiate in the field between hemp variety of cannabis sativa and cannabis sativa that has the psychoactive substance. So it's going to be very difficult to actually tell farmers that they are growing something that is legally what they should be growing. So the best solution over here is to just allow the growing of cannabis as people are doing over as they're doing already currently. This is just an image of the current traditional food uses of cannabis. I also want to stress on the last solution, universal basic income. through public distribution systems of rations, through Manrega, and through climate change investments. There is a difference between the Himachal and the Uttarakhand model, where in Himachal, they have significant coverage of PDS to their farmers, which secures farmers' lives and allows them to innovate and practice modern techniques of farming. A reduction in this means that you're making the farmers vulnerable and forcing them back into a subsistence style and a vulnerable style of agriculture. But recent budget trends have indicated that, that the move is to actually reduce support to farmers rather than to increase it for them. Agroforestry and crop diversification, these are already addressed by some of the others. I'll just share some images of mixed agriculture, polyhouse, fenced agriculture, as well as hybrid, high density farming. Value addition and direct marketing by farmer groups and cooperatives or farmer federations to take out produce from large retail chains and to enable local farmer groups to control value addition and processing. Of course, also regeneration of forests and protection of forests and water bodies, including strengthening community forests in Uttarakhand One Panchayats.
Yes, conclude, please.
So I'll just, I'll just finish with this. Sorry for rushing through, and thank you. And I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Yeah, it's a great intervention you have done, Ram Ranaji. Thank you very much for your being on time, almost 2 minutes over. Okay, so from Indian Himalayas, now we again move to other country, and that country is very well-known country. You all know about this country. This is Ukraine. So we have the presentation on the impact of military operations in Ukraine on the world food market, and it will be delivered by Dr. Alla Peshenyuk. She is associate professor at the Podilya State University and also a chairperson of an NGO, Institute of Socio-Economic Regional Studies. She is a senior global fellow with us. So I invite her, if her internet is okay, please try.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hasrat. Hello to everyone. My warm wishes from Ukraine. I want to introduce my short presentation, impact of military operations in Ukraine on the world food market. Just a moment, presentation. Ukraine is the largest country in Europe with unique black soil, rich natural resources, and wonderful people. These factors have always been attractive to invaded who have tried to conquer our people in all historical periods. The history of Ukraine is a continuous struggle of the Ukrainian people for their right to life on their land. Slide.
Can you do it in a full slideshow mode? There is one button on the bottom. Just click that.
You can see my presentation?
We can see, but you click this slideshow mode. Slideshow. On the bottom, you see the right side.
No, Dr. Hasrat.
Okay, you just move. You go.
Ukraine is an industrial agrarian country with the advantage of exporting raw materials. One of the leading industries in agriculture, which provides about 14% of the country's foreign exchange earnings. As a leading grain exporter, Ukraine has experienced a sharp drop in its exports, leading to serious food security challenges for millions of people around the world. According to UNI report for 2022, 2.3 billion people in the world suffer from food insecurity. 45 million children in the world under 5-year-old are exhausted. 149 million children under 5-year-old are standing about. This means that the world is moving away from the goal of ending hunger in the world by 2030. All this very bad, especially for poor countries where people spend most of their income on food. The situation is particularly difficult in countries in arid regions in the Middle East and North Africa. They import more than 19% of all food, and the closest supplies for them Russia and Ukraine. Russia is the largest exporter of wheat in the world. It sells about 33 million tons per year. Ukraine supplies 20 million tons of wheat to the world market. Difficult situation in the world with sunflower oil. Disruptions in supplies have already caused prices to rise. Russia and Ukraine provide 57% of the world supply of sunflower oil. The big importers of this oil, in addition to the EU countries, are India, China, Iran, and Turkey. Next slide. In the pre-war period, Ukraine constantly increased to volume agricultural exports. About 19% of the product structure of our export is occupied by grains, oil crops, residues of the processing industry, oils and fats, meat and byproducts. Russia's military invasion seriously threatened the food supply of both Ukraine and other countries of the world. As can be seen from table 1, the export of products has decreased significantly compared to last year. We are seeing a 36% increase in flour alone. Ukraine exports much more fodder than food grain. In turn, this will have a negative impact on the livestock industry in the world. The consequences on the cessation of feed exports will begin to be felt gradually. Already the least efficient producers in the countries on the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia have started to reduce herds. This will affect the price of meat. Next slide. The geography of supplies of agricultural raw materials and value-added products from Ukraine is almost entirely focused on the European countries, 56%, as Asia region 30%, the African continent 14%. Today, about 40,000 farms operate in Ukraine. Small and medium-sized producers produce more 18% of agricultural products, of which up to 30% is used for the domestic market and up to 17% is exported. Part of the farm suffered as a result of the war. They have been destroyed or are under occupation. Some of them are forced to suspend work. The Russians are purposefully destroying farms. This is evidenced by the number of shelled farms in different regions of Ukraine. Sometimes animals are shot just for fun. As results of the Russian war, 15% of all livestock in Ukraine has already been destroyed. Direct losses from the war in agriculture calculated by the Ministry of Agricultural Policy in September amounted to $6.6 billion and indirect losses $34.5 billion. So far, more than 20% of the available cultivated area and more than 17% of the irrigated area have been lost. Documentation of crimes and damages continues. According to preliminary forecasts of the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine, the sown area in 2023 will decrease by 7 million hectares compared to the pre-war figure of 29 million hectares. Because of the war, the structure of cultivated areas and the volume of crop will change significantly. A decrease in the amount of fertilizer application will directly affect the indicators of the gross harvest. Ukraine will be provided with all food groups for domestic consumption. But the export potential is expected to change. In particular, much less corn will be sown, while it one of the main grain crops that was exported. Ukrainian farmers had a very difficult season to agricultural work. Despite considerable risks, they went out into the fields even under fire. In this way, our country was able to fully provide itself with food for the next year. A key logistical problem at the start of a large-scale invasion was the blockade of sea ports. Given this, it was important to reorient Ukrainian exports to alternative routes. Thanks to European partners, the Path of Solidarity program was launched. In Ukraine, due to the operation of the grain corridor, the situation on the grain market improved, but the state lost at least $1 billion in the form of wheat collected by Russia in the occupied territories. According to NASA harvest, almost 6 million tons of wheat were collected from territories not controlled by Ukraine. Russian ships have previously been reported to be exporting grain taken from the occupied territories to various countries, including Libya and Iran. Conclusions. Ukraine and Russia are among the most important producers of agricultural products in the world. At the height of the current crisis, production and therefore exports of two major food exporters have been disrupted. But first of all, we need to stop Russia which destroys the agricultural industry of Ukraine every day. Only tough sanctions and assistance to Ukraine with weapons from partner countries will make it possible to inflict a crushing defeat on Russia and therefore save millions of lives around the world. Otherwise, Russian terror will be continue, particularly through the food crisis and blackmail by hunger. Thank you for your attention. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Dr. Allah. It's very interesting presentation you have done, and you have really sensitized all of us what is happening with the agriculture production and the farmers and the livestock in your country because of the Russian war imposed on your country. Thank you once again. Now we move to again to South Asia, where Ms. Nusrat Yaqub is waiting for her presentation on Kabul-Indus Shared Water Treaty, a regional dichotomy in South Asia. So she will be highlighting this water governance subject from Afghanistan and Pakistan perspectives, including India. So Ms. Nusrat is a PhD scholar at the Department of Economics in the University of Karachi, Pakistan. She is also the member of the UNESCO Water. So are you ready, Nusrat?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, please come and you start. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak onto the issue. Kabul-Indus Shared Water Treaty, a regional dichotomy in South Asia. This is a content and outline of this presentation, which is I'm going to discuss. Basically, why we are saying that Kabul-Indus Treaty is an important issue in South Asia, and what are its salient features concerning to the Indus River basins and Kabul River Basin, because Kabul River Basin is the basin where almost 20 million people are living around this basin. The annual flow of Kabul River Basin has declined over the years by 4.8% from 1950 to 2021. This is basically a geographical depiction of rivers in the Himalayan region, specifically concerning to the South Asia. In South Asia, there are 6 transboundary landscapes: Hindu Kush, Karakoram, Pamir, Kailash, Mount Everest, Kangchun, Junga, Far Eastern Himalayas, Cherrapunji, Chittagong. The gray area is showing the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, major river, and the white area is showing the major river basins. Yellow line is showing the proposed transects, and basically the simple lines are showing the major river areas. Mainly the major rivers in the South Asian region are the Ganga Jamuna River, Indus, and Brahmaputra. These are the biggest river in the South Asia. Salient features of the Indus River Basin: it is home of 300 million people and 1/6 housing of the world population. It accounts for 4% of the world renewable water resources. It ranked 17th among the largest river systems in the world. The key challenges in the mountainous region of the Indus Basin are glacial melt due to an increase in average temperature, flood damages, infrastructure losses, inequitable water distribution is a clinging issue of water governance. Due to the above mentioned reasons, food and water access is in a transitional phase in South Asia, specifically in the countries concerning to Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Pakistan, Maldives, and Nepal. These are some of the numerical depiction. Geography of the Indus and its major tributaries in number. Total area of Indus is 1.12 million km per square. Its ranking is 21st across the world. Area of Indus, 63% located in Pakistan, 14% in India, 11% in Afghanistan, and 1% in China. Countries' share in Indus territorial extent is 47% in Pakistan, 39% in India, 8% in China, and 6% in Afghanistan. The overall irrigation withdrawal in the basin for agricultural purpose is 93%. And the regional countries' share into it is Pakistan share is 63%, India share is 36%, Afghanistan share is 1%, whereas China's share is only 0.04%. Pakistan has yet entered only one treaty with which is Indus Water Treaty, which Pakistan signed with India on 1960. There is no any kind of bilateral agreement exists between Pakistan and India, between Pakistan and Afghanistan. However, Afghanistan signed Helmand River Water Treaty in 1973 with Iran. Basically, why we are discussing Helmand River at here is this, that Kabul River and Helmand River both arises from Sanglakh Range. Both originated from Sanglakh Range, and due to only Unai Pass separated both of the rivers. Therefore, we are discussing that Helmand and Kabul River both originated from the same area. However, Afghanistan has a bilateral agreement with Iran, but not any bilateral agreement with Pakistan. Over the years, per capita freshwater withdrawal has decreased substantially in South Asia, which is 29% in Afghanistan, 41% in Bangladesh, 60% in China, in India 41%. Pakistan share is substantial decline because Pakistan is already countering with very minimal and limited water resources. So it is very much important for Pakistan that its share is has declined 27% because Pakistan has only one river basin, which is Indus River Basin. Nepal share has decreased 44%, whereas Bhutan share has decreased 33%. But the notable point is this, that still Bhutan freshwater withdrawal is up to other countries, because it is not decreased that much proportionally as compared to other countries of the South Asia. What are the reasons that why per capita freshwater withdrawal is important? Because per capita freshwater withdrawal is largely effective because it is why we are taking into account per capita freshwater withdrawal, because due to largely ineffective water governance issues, the water crisis pattern has become skewed, specifically in South Asia. Due to interregional power imbalances in South Asia, lack of reliable data is the manifestation of security concerns concerning to environment, food, and energy in the region as per United Nations Water Convention 1997. This is geographical and propositional share of Kabul Indus water concerning to fresh water, which is surface water withdrawal, specifically in the context of Pakistan. Kabul River arises from Chitral districts, and it is formed from Kunar and Swat region, Swat River, besides many other small rivers. It passes through 6 urban centers of KPK, then it enters into the Afghanistan and passes along with Jalalabad and Kandahar, and again enters into the Pakistan at Attock, and at Attock district it falls into the Indus River Basin. So it has its share in total Indus River Basin is 20%, although it varies from 20 to 28%. Overall total Indus water withdrawal or total water withdrawal is 80%, on which 20 to 28% water withdrawal is from Kabul River Basin. Why the Kabul Indus Water Treaty is so vital for Pakistan and for South Asia as well? Because at this time across the South Asia, water crisis is continuously increasing. Even currently, India has warned to Pakistan that Indus Water Treaty need to be revisited. Pakistan Pakistan authorities are already saying this thing, that Pakistan, not only Indus Water Treaty is need to be revisited, but Pakistan has entered into the Kabul Indus Water Treaty is also. So therefore, joint actions and efforts are important for sustainable development in South Asia. And for this reason, Indus Water Treaty need to be revisited by taking into account all of the regional stakeholders' concerns and key challenges concerning to climate, population pressure, governance mechanism. Distribution of water must depend on 3 key W's: who gets water, when gets water, and how gets water. Water governance and diplomacy must be a central tool to end regional conflicts to ensure justice, peace, and sustainability through infrastructural design, technologies, and the population's water requirements. Thank you.
So it's done. Nusrat, finished?
Yes, sir, it was very brief.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have done.
Great, thank you very much. You are on time. So, dear friend, lastly, we have with us Dr. Om Katil, who is with us as the Senior Global Fellow. He's the lecturer and the program leader with the College of Natural Resources, Royal University of Bhutan. So today he is going to speak on high altitude ecosystem management for enhancing resilience in Bhutan. So he is a very experienced scholar and experienced teacher and researcher. So I invite Dr. Om Katil. Are you here, please?
Yes, sir, I'm here, and give me a minute to share my slide. And I hope I'm audible.
You are, and your screen is visible. Good. Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So, okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for your attendance in this seminar. Just give me a second. Let me just take that side. Okay, so tonight I'd like to share the findings from this project where the United Nations Development Program has implemented more than 10 projects in the part of Bhutan, and we were involved in looking at how does this enhancing different activities has affected the ecosystems at the local level. So it's rather than getting quickly into the results, I would say I'd like to share some of the findings that we come across from these ecosystems. So, and it is a brief snapshot of these different projects, and I just look at one of the sites, not all the 10 sites, but one of the sites which is at the eastern Bhutan. So I was listening to the keynote speaker, Professor Dietrich Spinborg, and he states that the forests is affected by different drivers. It has many different drivers, and one of them, of course, globally, they looked at the climate change, and it is not a future phenomenon anymore. And it is, they look at from the human interventions perspective, how does the human use actually has been affecting the forest resources around the world? Because, excuse me, this question is important in terms of the Himalayan region, because the significant number of population are depending on the natural resources, the ecosystem services, so to say, that is coming out from the Himalaya, like forest resources, water resources, etc. And then another interesting part of this region is that it is the biodiversity hotspots, and this is the Isimud publication, and you can see that the whole of Himalaya is actually the light green. You can see that this is the global biodiversity hotspots, and one of the reasons they have stated why this is a global hotspots is that you can see the density of populations in this region. I was quite fascinated by this map that wherever the complex ecosystems are there, the density of population is high, and this tells us a lot of stories about ecosystems in this region. And when we look at this socio-ecological systems, there are so much of processes and functions where when humans are involved in extracting resources from the ecosystems, what happens is it affects structure, their functions, and then in turn it affects the different benefits that is available to humans, like food security, water security, and many others actually. And from this perspective, the United Nations Development Program came up with the idea that this Himalayan region has many different types of ecosystems. These are exposed to different types of factors that is affecting them, since they are geologically fragile. And then when humans are modifying the ecosystems, it will actually reach to no point return. So it has to eventually collapse. So why not we do something, and then so that we can develop the resilience of the communities? And they come up with the idea that the Satoyama initiatives, which is originated in Japan, the concept of good landscape, resilient landscape, that can be implemented in Bhutan. So they come up with the project that the community development and knowledge management for the Satoyama initiatives project in Bhutan. And looking at the ecosystems in Bhutan, or one of the ecosystems in Bhutan identified as vulnerable and fragile was the extreme eastern watershed. And in this project, the watershed was used because watershed is very important, linking the upstream and downstream areas, because the activity that is implemented at the upstream areas affects the downstream communities ultimately. So in the upstream, you can see this one of the communities in the eastern Bhutan, extreme eastern Bhutan, and their dependency is significant. They depend on the grazing, the livestock rearing, extracting resources from the forests, and their life is actually circled around the natural resources, and it is by virtue of the environment. Because it is high altitude, they cannot do extensive farming, crop farming. So they have to depend on the migratory herd grazing and other activities related to the livestock in the high altitude. As you can see that the livestock is a major actually source of income for them. So they'll have to graze the livestock. They have to move from one place to the other. And that is the main activities there. But in the context of climate change, this ecosystem has been degrading, and then what they are saying is that the grazing, the fodder, the feed is changing, and that is actually degrading. The ecosystem as a whole is degrading. And this project actually looked into from a different perspective. What is climate change? How much activities is there? And on the other hand, looking at the climate change and then relating to the precipitation patterns, hydrology, the settlements of these communities is actually, they are in danger because the river is flowing. The river actually flooding, and then it is bringing risks to these communities in their village actually. So it was threatened. And then another thing is that they'll have to depend on this different transportation mode, like using yak as a transportation. And during the summer season, these communities, they could not actually, many times they could not bring food to their homes, and they could not take the commodities to their huts in the different seasons. So that was the difficulties. And you can see in the right-hand side top, this person is looking at how the bridge was actually washed away from that, and then how villages in that region was actually disconnected. And this ecosystem is not only important for livelihood, but it's also important for the tradition and culture, because these people who are living in the high altitude areas, they depend on natural resources for their cultural identity. And in the context of climate change and human disturbances, the ecosystems are dwindling, and there is risks also that these people would be going to lose their identity in the future. And you can see that one of the causes that in this landscape, what has happened was the forest has degraded, and when forest was degraded, it exposed to the sun, and then it started to become dry. And then in rainy season, the soil erosion was initiated. And when the soil erosion became more and more extreme, then that resulted in the landslide. You can see that there is a fencing, and after that there is a landslide, and that actually posed greater risks to the ecosystem as a whole. And this also is one of the wildlife sanctuary in Bhutan. So it is also a risk to that wildlife sanctuary. And in the downstream areas, since because of the soil erosion in the upstream areas, it has actually initiated the landslide, something like this in the downstream areas. Here it is not looking so prominent, but I couldn't take a exact picture. But then this landslide has actually posed a big risks to the settlements who are living in the downstream areas. And this is one of the things that we were traveling to this area, and then we had to turn this car and then keep it there. As you see that the road has been completely washed away by the soil erosion in the upstream areas, and that has resulted in the landslide in the downstream areas. And in the downstream areas, one of the things is that you can see this beautiful rice fields, and this rice fields is actually threatened by those soil erosion in the upstream areas. And the activities, what UNDP has proposed is that you can see that let us divide this, the landscape into different grazing areas, non-grazing areas, because one of the factors they have identified is the grazing areas. And grazing is so much so that it did not get, the ecosystem actually did not get time to regenerate themselves. So in order to experiment, why not fence it, vulnerable areas, and then keep it open for other areas so that people keep on grazing, then we can also have a learning. And another thing is that you can see that people use so much of fuel wood because it is high altitude, and in high altitude it is cold. And the different agencies, through different agencies, they have provided with this, they call bukhari, where they can burn this fuel wood and heat the homes. And using this bukhari is actually so much efficient, because they'll have to, they can use 60% less fuel wood to warm their homes with and without this bukhari. So another thing is that people use so much of fuel wood to roof their houses. So the UNDP has come up with the idea that why not use, provide them these CGI zinc sheets so that people use it, and then the felling of the trees would be reduced. And then we found that with this, they have actually reduced 85% of the tree felling in this region. And another thing, a little below down, what they have also done is that one of the things, activities lead to soil erosion is these less sustainable land management. And then the different people went there and they provided training to these communities how to build terraces and then conserve soil to reduce the soil erosion. And in some areas, protecting water sources by fencing. And in some areas, building the canals, channeling the water to the proper discharge canal. And then another activity was building the embankment, at the side of the river so that the village would be protected. So these are some of the activities they have initiated. And then we found that with this, they have protected, based on the local people's responses, they said that it is 60 to 80% efficient, and they are realizing that how to use these resources judiciously and protect this ecosystem. And just to tell you that we have used this different, broad, methodologies to assess this. That is, one of the criteria was ecosystem protection, agricultural biodiversity, knowledge, learning, innovation, social equity, and infrastructure. And these 4 criteria actually makes this the ecosystems, the Satoyama-based ecosystems, which is resilient. So they recommended using these 4 criteria to assess the ecosystem. So of course there are so many different indicators to look at. I'm not going to present it right now because it is quite large.
Dr. Patel, you have 2 minutes only left.
Yes, I'll finish that. And these are some of the learnings that what we come up with is that human-wildlife conflict, wherever we go in villages, they have this human-wildlife conflict, and it is one of the complex issues that we need to look at, appropriately. And of course, pressure on natural resources. That is, looking at this ecosystem. One of the things they have done is they have actually did some inbreed. I don't know how to say that. Multiplied the livestock through some breeding with different species, different varieties, and then the new varieties of livestock is actually so much efficient in using the resources, and that is these are the factors that is leading to the degradation of the natural resources. And another one is, of course, water issues. I'll not touch on that, the water issues, because it is quite a big issues in that region. And these are the lessons learned. As Professor Dietrich mentioned in the keynote speech, that watershed is a complex mosaic of land uses. It is connected to many different things. So we need to look at from different perspective, different discipline, and one discipline and one finding is not enough. And that is what we land up not being able to conclude specifically that how to control this soil erosion, for example. And that is leading to the conflict, and the conflict is again downstream and upstream areas linkages. It is very, very complex, and we need to also look at from the governance issue and from the developmental issue from different perspective, and that is very important issue we found out. And another thing, while implementing any projects, we need to mobilize the local resources. For example, the local officials who are involved with the local communities, they are very useful. And before implementing any projects, we need to consult communities, and then we need to get prior information from these officials and the communities, so that we can design the project better, and we can address the root causes of the issues. Another thing in this region is, of course, UNDP, United Nations project, they look at empowerment of women. And that is one of the key issues that we found out, because when women are involved, it is found that women can actually take care of the ecosystem in a better way than the men. So this project, another learning is that while implementing the any projects at the watershed level, we need to actually connect to different organizations, different stakeholders, and understand the mobilization, the power dynamics, and then the resources at stake in the region. So I'll stop there, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Katil. Thank you very much. So this was interesting presentation. Thank you again. So the presentations from our fellows are now over, and we are now moving towards concluding this seminar. So for the conclusion part, I will invite Dr. Abid Hussain, and let me introduce him. He is a PhD and master's from Asian Institute of Technology. At present, he is a senior economist and food systems specialist and group lead of socioeconomics and research methods at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD. ICIMOD is a very well-known name in the mountain field. ICIMOD actually is a regional intergovernmental learning and knowledge sharing center, serving the 8 regional member countries of Hindu Kush Himalaya. And those 8 countries include Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, Nepal, and Pakistan. So Dr. Abid Hussain has 19, if I'm not wrong, 19 or 20 years of work experience. And almost for 10 years, he's with ICIMOD. Prior to joining ICIMOD, he served as the assistant professor at the Department of Economics in the University of Haripur, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan, and also in the Department of Economics and Agricultural Economics at the Pir Meher Ali Shah Arid Agriculture University in Pakistan. As a renowned expert, Dr. Abid Hussain was and is involved with large number of organizations, institutions, global forums, and the groups. Having a very high scored authorship in his credit, he was lead author of the chapter Food and Nutrition Security in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, Unique Challenges and Niche Opportunities, in a book titled The Hindu Kush Himalaya Assessment, Mountains, Climate Change, Sustainability, and People. So he is also a contributing author of the cross chapter 5, Mountains, of the IPCC report, one of the IPCC reports. So he is no doubt very young, and he is a high achiever in his field. So once again, I invite him to conclude today's seminar. Dr. Abid Hussain, it's up to you.
Thank
Please.
you so much, Dr. Hasrat. So it's really honor to be part of this seminar. So it's internal kind of feeling that I saw my professor, Professor Schmidt. I was there in Asian Institute of Technology as a student when he was faculty member there. Of course, I have my fellow also, Dr. Om from Bhutan. Really happy to see both of you, and really looking forward to see you again and again in future. So as far as this seminar is concerned, the title is very vital. Of course, Grassroots Institute is providing a kind of platform to share learning, scientific learning, and implementations across countries. So I really appreciate this. It's a kind of role what ICIMOD is doing at regional level in terms of science sharing and of course implementation, but Grassroots Institute is more focused on science sharing. I really appreciate this platform and very happy to be part of this. So keynote speech from Professor Schmidt, actually I missed because of my official meeting that prolonged beyond the scheduled time. So I joined when Professor Dr. Vishwanath, Dr. Vishwa, when he was presenting ecosystem services for livelihood sustainability in the Indian Central Himalaya. So he presented 3 J's. So Jal, Jameen, and Jungle are the main local resources for livelihoods and need sustainable use and management. Yes, it's very important. And almost 80 to 90% livelihoods, particularly in mountain ecosystems, depend on these natural resources. And of course, it requires sustainable use and management. Another speaker, Dr. Sanjay Swami, he presented and highlighted the major issues on deterioration of natural resources and increasing demand for basic needs like food. He revealed the importance of nature-based solutions for sustainability of agriculture in hills in northeastern India. So he presented a case of Zabo farming system of Nagaland. For me, there were 2 levels of nature-based solutions. First one is macro level, what I assess. That macro level solution was actually forest, water, and agriculture nexus. How good in terms of natural sequence on high altitude forest, then water catchment or watershed area, then in the lower part, agriculture crops are being practiced. It's a kind of natural forest, water and agriculture nexus. It's very inspiring nature-based solution at macro level. He also presented some micro level nature-based solutions, particularly like that bamboo drip irrigation system. So overall, the key message is nature-based solutions are very important for natural resource conservation, food security, and biodiversity in mountain ecosystems. Another speaker, Dr. Ayman, he presented, and of course, I agree to his point. Also, camel is a future animal as far as livestock is concerned in changing climate and water stresses climate change is causing. He presented case from Sudan. So presented different nomadic systems and their issues and challenges. Particularly, some of the issues are of very high importance. For example, the women have limited financial services and face more challenges in terms of resources and food security. And another challenge, pastoral systems, pastoral are facing the lack of medicinal services, food shortage, water shortage, lack of security, and of course they're facing paying taxes also. The next speaker, Miss Clara, she presented only the one of unique forest, only wild walnut forest in the world, around 47,000 hectares of land. I was really amused knowing this. This is the only wildly grown walnut forest in the world. So this is state-owned forest, but communities still depend for their livelihoods on this forest very heavily in terms of food, income, and several other services like they also harvest berries and medicinal plants from these forests. So protection and conservation of such forests is very important. These forests are facing issues like aging. And of course, with passage of time, these forests will be facing low productivity, and loss of forest is also on the odds. So very inspiring presentation it was. Then Mr. Ram Narayan, he presented mountain agriculture. So very nicely, it was very impressive. So he mentioned that he actually presented a case from two Western Himalayan states of India, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. And among the main issues, marginal land holding is a very prominent issue. 70 to 80% farmers are still having marginal land holdings, and women farmers are not considered adequately in policies. Degradation of forests and loss of other commons are the very critical issues. Of course, forest fires are increasing. One factor was very important related to forest fires, that they are mainly human induced, and very less evidence is available whether they are connected with climate change or not. Yes, this is true. We CMOD are also facing difficulty to see the attribution whether really forest fires are associated with climate change or not. Mainly they are human-induced incidences. He suggested several policy solutions. Broader categories were policy, technological, and of course community-based solutions for sustainability of mountain agriculture. He also presented a good case study of cannabis or hemp and presented issues and opportunities related to hemp. So next presentation, Dr. Allah presented a very, very vital global issue, how Russia-induced war in Ukraine not only impacting food security within Ukraine, of course, the global food security. So direct or indirect losses caused by this war within Ukraine are $41 billion as per data on September 2022. It's very alarming. And of course, the exports from Ukraine are also negatively impacted by this war. Overall, legumes and grains together, if we consider the exports from Ukraine, 71% decline is observed in exports from Ukraine to other countries. This is itself a very alarming, because Ukraine is one of the main exporters of wheat and other grains. And of course, the supply chain of these grains in global market is disrupted. There are several other indirect macro factors which are not, of course, covered in this presentation. They are also impact global food security because of this. Then Ms. Nusrat, she presented and highlighted key challenges in Indus River Basin. Indus, of course, is lifeline in particularly in Western Himalayas for agriculture and, of course, the livelihoods of people. So one factor she has not presented, I would like to highlight, around 75% to 80% water in Indus River is coming from melt sources, from snowfall and glaciers. So any kind of variation in terms of water in this river basin can impact very significantly, particularly life and livelihoods of people in Western Himalaya. So one point is very important, that political stability, sustainability of Indus River systems calls for regional collaboration in South Asia, not only bilateral agreement or treaties between Afghanistan or Pakistan or India. It requires regional cooperation. Of course, Indus River Basin is shared by 4 countries, not only 1 or 2 countries. It's very important, regional cooperation. The last colleague, Dr. Om, he presented the case of one site from Eastern Bhutan and highlighted that ecosystem services are very vital for livelihoods of millions of people in Eastern Himalaya. He highlighted very key message that enhancing resilience in mountain ecosystems is vital for not only food security, but for water security, income, fuel, fodder, cultural identity, and several other aspects. Overall, we learned from each other. And of course, this fact is validated through this seminar that conservation and management of resources is very, very important, not only for food, economy, and livelihoods. It goes much beyond. Over from my side, Dr. Hasrat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abid Hussain. You have narrated the whole story of the seminar in a very quick time, very short time. Thank you again, once again. Dear friends, now we have to discuss something important lastly, and that is how you can access this seminar after this seminar is over. So let me just share with you quickly, this is an announcement, and later on we will open the forum for the question and answers from the audience. So if you see my screen, you please, sorry, where is it? Yeah, just to see, this is the website of this global leadership program, grassroots global leadership program. You simply type here glp.grassrootsinstitute.ca, or you can type GLP in the end. Just type after this /GLP. Okay. So you will be here and you just scroll down to the bottom. Okay. Here you will see all these fellows who have presented just now. And here is one link, see all fellows. Click this link. And if you scroll down a little bit, here you will find a progress of this particular seminar. Okay, from tomorrow, you will see a progress here, and the presentations of everybody will be linked. Not only the presentations, this PowerPoint, there will be the PDF files, but also this recorded video of 3.5 hours, you will also find the link for it here. So you can click the link of this video and you will lead to the YouTube. So you can watch and listen all the lectures once again if you need. So this is just an announcement. Clara, can you just stop sharing for me? Okay, so now we open the forum for certain question and answers or some comments from the audience side. Although majority of the questions are already sorted out, the presenters or the lecturers have already responded to many questions which had been shared in the Q&A and check boxes. So we open it for like maybe 10 minutes, right? Okay, then our colleague Najma is waiting for closing and giving the thanks to everybody. Okay, please. Who will coordinate this? Just see some people are raising the hands. Clara, can you facilitate, please?
Okay, so I see the first person, Mr. Sunil Bosale. I'm sorry if I am pronouncing it wrong. One second.
And then give the access to all of these for, yeah, you have already given. Yes, please don't waste time and just quickly speak. Okay, if he's not there, you just switch over to the next one. Clara?
Okay, Mr. Paul Lalramsang.
Dr. Paul, you here? No, he's not. So the next one.
Okay, Tefera Arega Vildetensa. You can unmute and talk. I have included 3 persons.
Hello.
Please speak.
My question is already answered, but I would
Okay,
like
good.
to say that every presenters presented very nice and important issues, and I would like to thank both
Great.
of you and the presenters. Thank you very much.
So anyone else likes to speak? Even if hand is not raised, no problem. Just come forward. Okay.
Okay, so Narendaran Guria.
Hello.
Yeah, please speak.
Thank you, sir. A very big opportunity for this question. Basically, at present now, they are Uttarakhand. Recently, there have different disaster. So, what happened after 100 years in the Himalayan region in Uttarakhand, and how we can manage at still now in our local people, and what will be happen about the particular difference Uttarakhand in our country, India.
So Ram Narayan, would you like to give any reflection, or Dr. Sanjay Swami?
I can attempt. I think, am I audible?
Yes, please.
I think basically at present, the current development paradigm, of which includes mass excavation of soil, rapid urbanization, a really indiscriminate use of large earth moving devices and explosives, along with just as a statistic, Uttarakhand receives something like I think 10 million tourists a year or something like that, in that range. So there needs to be protocols in place which minimize the impact of all of these. And unless that is addressed, especially what we are seeing post Joshimath, now in at least 10, 15 other locations, incidences of subsidence are being reported. And most of this seems to be caused by rapid urbanization. So unless there's a very drastic change in policy, which aims more towards geological and resource conservation rather than extraction, it seems that the situation will only worsen and not get better unless something drastic is done in the near future.
Okay.
Sir, there at the high altitude area, there is a many dam for electricity, hydropower electricity. So how we can manage their one side the generation of resource management and there are people directly involved on this area, there the tourism, there are many marketplace and many different places all they are also affected. But their government established the hydropower electricity or the high altitude area. So it is very dangerous in the future generation. So how we can manage it basically?
Dr. Sati has already mentioned very clearly that hydropower is counterproductive to the stability and the future of the Himalaya. Also, if you look at what electricity Uttarakhand is currently producing, just to give you an estimate, just to give you a context, it is producing less than half of what is required by Delhi. So you can imagine the impact if we were to dam every single river across Uttarakhand. And we'll still not be able to cope with the massive requirement of electricity from the very, very large cities. So the solution does not lie only in Uttarakhand, it lies in the larger economic context and the larger context across India, across the world. So unless we address those issues, these other problems of high altitude glacial lake outflows, of floods, of other incidences that are happening will continue to remain and continue to increase.
Thank you.
Okay, any other question, please? Any other reflection or any other question? So then otherwise we will close.
There is a last one from Rinte Rentley.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, please speak.
Thank you, sir. First and foremost, thank you for a very enlightening session. My question is basically, I noticed Professor Dietrich had mentioned that community forestry played a very significant role in doubling the forest cover in Nepal. So my question is that what is the level of influence of community forestry in, let's just say, states like Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh? Can we emulate the same for these states?
Yes, sir. Professor, is Professor with us or has gone?
Yes, unfortunately, he had to leave because he had a meeting at 3 European time.
Okay. Can you please write this question to him directly?
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
His email is in the public domain. You can write.
Its history of one panchayats, which are similar to the community forests of Nepal. And these are old institutions that have been in existence since 1931. However, once again, very pessimistically, I have to say is that policy is devaluing the role of village forest councils in Uttarakhand and disempowering them. And in fact, it is being handed over very surreptitiously to the forest department. Whereas all the research that is there indicates that village forest councils are far more effective in saving their forests as well as promoting good forest type.
Okay. So should we move to close? And
I think there are no more questions, I believe.
Okay, please. Thank you. So Clara, can you give the vote of thanks, and then I will invite Nejma.
Yes, thank you everyone for participating, and it was a great pleasure to be part of this discussion, and hope we will arrange more similar webinars in future. Okay, thank you. So lastly, I invite our colleague Nejma. Nejma Bilarbi is the president and founder of Terra Ethics. She is an ethnobotanist, and she is right now in Vancouver, and
is quite early time. You, Najma, with us? Please close this seminar properly and formally. Thank you. Najma, to you.
Thank you, Hassarat. Wow, thank you, everybody. What a privilege to be part of such an important research community and have listened to such a diversity of incredible work. Firstly, I'd like to start by thanking you all and the speakers for your excellent thought-provoking presentations. The Grassroots Institute, and particularly the session chairman, Dr. Hassarat's argument for organizing this webinar, animating the sessions and keeping us on time. I would also like to thank Ms. Clara for keeping us connected to the webinar and question platforms. And most importantly, I'd like to thank all of the participants and all of the important questions that have been shared. You know, as we've heard today, the role of mountain ecosystems has a global significance that makes a large impact on all other ecosystems, global climate conditions and economies. And again, thank you to the panelists for sharing their research and important insights, especially on the biocultural diversity of these diverse regions, and raising awareness about the current issues related to resource conservation and management in these ecosystems. And, you know, as was mentioned in these important presentations, there are very large interconnections between agricultural practices and nature-based solutions, policy and conservation, and as well as a diversity of thought-provoking solutions and work being conducted. And I think in this vein, I feel like interconnections and multidisciplinary collaborations are really important in advancing solution-based initiatives. We're definitely looking forward to further collaborations with all of you and in amplifying and further supporting this work symbiotically and urge you all to connect with us through the Grassroots Institute website. Again, thank you all for your participation and excellent presentations. I'm really, truly honored, looking very much forward to further developments in this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
Dr. Hazrat, we cannot hear you.
So yes, sorry, Najma, thank you very much for giving a closing remark. Just before closing this seminar, so I will again request Professor Hans Peter to greet all of us, just last his few words.
Hello. So we are already over time, but I would really congratulate to all the speakers with their essential input to this meeting. I enjoyed it very much to listen to you, and as I've briefly said in my mail to some of you, for sure, I will keep contact to learn about progress of your work. So thank you all, and thank you, Hasrat, for organizing such a smooth and interesting meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Now we formally close it, okay?
Thank you. I'm stopping the recording.
Thank you very much.